Hello and welcome to this video. If you're new here, my name is Marta and today I'm really excited because I just sat down looking in my single shadows to find dupes for the new Huda Beauty Mercury Retrograde palette because I was so drawn into those light blue shades, the peachy shades and the purples. I think they looked so nice together. It's like such an icy, wintry color story, I feel like, that I didn't think that I had, so I just had to sit down and look through my single shadows and see if I actually had something similar. So this is how the palette that I ended up with. As you can see, I have a lot of alternatives for the shadows, so I think I will just start by going from this row to this row, and I will do the swatches of the shades, and I will also swatch the similar shades that I have underneath here, just because it's really hard to see just by looking at the photos and the swatches how the shades are, so that's why I have some alternatives, because you can't really see how warm it is, how cool toned it is, and then I have some alternatives. And it's also about personal preference. If you personally just want to buy one of the shades that you see in that palette, then you can have some options. For example, for this shade, this is way more orange, but then you also have some more pinky shades, and then you have a little bit lighter shades, so just like that. And by doing this, it's not to say that you should not buy the Huda Beauty palette, it's more so to make you look into your own collection and for me to look into my collection, because I thought there were so many beautiful shades there. And if you just want one or two shades from the palette, then you can go ahead and purchase eyeshadow singles for like $2 to $6 instead of buying a whole palette for $67, which is a lot. So I think I will just start by going into this first shade. The shade that I chose was the shade Nostalgic by Makeup Geek, which is I would just call it an icy pink shade. And from the Huda Beauty palette, I will just leave some photos of it up in the corner. It just looked like a pink shade. I will try to turn down the lights a little bit so you can see the colors better. This is just a very light pink shade, but I did also have some other shades that I wanted to show you. So I have the shade from Luxy Beauty that is called Gem, which is a darker pink shade. So it was a little bit hard to see just by the swatches what kind of pink shade it was. This one is a lot darker, as you can see. So if you want a darker shade, then maybe it could be an idea to buy something like this instead. I do also have some other beautiful pink shadows from Luxy Beauty. So I have this one, which is called Baby Girl, I think, and this one I think is Tesla. So yeah, this is Tesla and this is Baby Girl. So you can see they are also like beautiful pink shadows. I would say Tesla has more of a minty green to blue, icy blue shift, while Baby Girl has a minty green shift to it. So this is Baby Girl and this is Tesla. And I think Tesla could also dupe the one in the Huda Beauty palette quite well, just because it's a quite hot pink, but after watching the swatches I think that this might be closer, but then again my skin tone is very pale, so it's a little bit hard to say. But at least here are a couple of alternatives for that shade, and that shade is called Cosmic. The next shade in the Huda Beauty palette is called Utopia and looks like it is a very orangey peachy shade, which is why I chose this shade from Colourpop, which is called Best Coast Scenario, and it's a very bright peachy shade. And as you can see, it's a very bright peachy shade, which I ended up choosing for my dupe for that shadow. I also found some other shades. This is the shade that I already swatched for you, Best Coast Scenario. This shade is the shade Cycle from Lethal Cosmetics, which is a little bit paler and a little bit more yellow maybe. Then we have the shade Centerfold here on my ring finger, which is a little bit lighter and a little bit more pink. Then we have the shade Crushin' from Colored Rain Vivid Pigments collection, and it's almost the same darkness. It's a medium corally shade, but it's a little bit more pink. so I will just swatch them. So as I said, this is Best Coast Scenario. Then we have the shade Centerfold right here. Then we have the shade Cycle. And last but not least, it's the shade Crushin' from Colored Rain. So as you can see, there's a lot of difference in these shades. I personally feel like this one looks to be the closest match to the Huda Beauty one. But I think also Cycle would be very nice, but as for my palette, I didn't want to have a square pan in my palette, so that's why I went with this one. And I do think that it might be a little bit of a better match as well. These ones are more for comparisons, or if you prefer more cool toned or pinky toned peaches instead of that one, if you wanted to pick it up. The next shade in the Huda palette is called Ultraviolet, and I thought it was a little bit hard to do because it looked so different in all the different photos. This one is from the Colourpop Ooh La La palette, which retails for $12. It's even cheaper if you get it on sale, and it has several that might look a little bit similar to some of these shades. So I remember this one is called Chiclet, it's from the same palette. And then I also have another one here that I don't remember the name of, but also from that same palette. So this is the one I chose. Then we have the shade Chiclet from that same palette. It's a lot darker, more cool toned, and then this one is lighter again. So I think this one is like a nice middle thing. So that's why I chose to put that one in my dupe palette. So that's how these look. As I said, they're all from the Colourpop Ooh La La palette, but I also have some purple shades from Makeup Geek Cosmetics that I think look alike, so I will also swatch and tell you the names of those. So this is one of my palettes with Makeup Geek singles. So this one is the shade Plot Twist. Then we have the shade that is called Hype, and then the last purpley shade here is called Caitlin Rose. So I think those could also be dupes for the Huda Beauty palette, depending on actually how it looks in real life. So you can see there's a little bit of a difference in this when it comes to the warmth and a little bit when it comes to the depth as well. But I think all of these would also look very beautiful as purple shimmers going with the dupe palette that I have here. So at least these ones are maybe somewhat similar to the one in the palette. So it's Plot Twist here, Hype, and Caitlin Rose. And I actually have two more purples here. As you can see, they're quite different from the one that I chose, but as I said, I don't know exactly how it looks. So this is Colourpop in the shade Fault Line, which is a single shadow. It's more of a satin than a shimmer, which is why I would not have chosen it, because I obviously love more sparkly shades. And then this one is Luxie Beauty in the shade Duper Star, which is very much a purple to blue shadow. So I'm just going to swatch these for you as well. Colourpop Fault Line and Luxie Beauty Duper Star. If I had to take another shade than the one I chose, I would probably have chosen this one, because I think it goes very well with the palette because of the blue shift, and it's a little bit more cool toned than the one I chose here. And I shall repeat to you, the first three are from the Colourpop Ooh La La palette. Then we have the three next shades from Makeup Geek's Single Shadows collection, the shade Plot Twist, Hype, and Caitlin Rose. Then it's Colourpop Fault Line, and the last one is Luxie Beauty in the shade Duper Star. The next shade from the Huda Beauty palette is the shade Nebula, which is sort of hard to see how it looks like, so just going after the official swatches, it looks like a grey but with some purple in it, so I just went for my Makeup Geek in the shade Sorcery, which is a grey but with a little bit of a purple reflect, but not much. It's more of a grey shadow, but those shades aren't really something I look for, so that's why I don't have any more examples of that kind of shades. But I do think this one is the most similar one, and it is a very nice shimmer shade. So this is Makeup Geek in the shade Sorcery. The next shade in the Huda palette is the shade that is called Mercury, and for that one I chose Colourpop in the shade Antimatter. It's a super sparkly teal blue shade with a almost black background to it. And I also have the newest blue shade that they released, the shade Gridlock. It's a little bit hard to see how bright it actually is in the swatches, so I just thought I'd show you both of these. So this is the shade Antimatter. It's got a black background with blue to purple shifts throughout it. It's a gorgeous shade. And then we have the shade Gridlock, which is obviously a way brighter, more teal blue, which is also very pretty. But I do think that this one, the shade Antimatter, looks a little bit more like the shade that is in the Huda Beauty palette though. As you can see, these two are very different, but at least these are the two ones that I had that resembles more the shades in the palette. The next shade in the Huda Beauty palette is the shade Haze, which is a light blue, almost tealy shade. It has sort of hints of green to it, and I chose to go with my Colourpop shadow in the shade Muscle Bleach. It's not the most pigmented shade, but it's very easily to build up if you just dig into the shade a lot. And I do also have one from Amy Heart's Beauty. This one is very loose in the pan, so it's going to pick up a lot. So this one is Muscle Beach, and this one is the one from Amy Heart's Beauty. So as you can see, I didn't really get much from Muscle Beach, even though I really went into the pan. But I did use it for my look today, and it built up very nicely. So I'm just going to swatch these for you. Muscle Beach from Colourpop, and the shade Fun from Amy Heart's Beauty. I'm trying to build up the shade Muscle Beach a bit. It's not the easiest shade to swatch, but as I told you, it did build up quite nicely on my eye, even though it swatches terribly. So yeah, I think you would do great with both of these if you wanted just the light blue matte shade, because these two both look quite similar, honestly. So we're on to the second row in the palette. Huda Beauty's is called Off Balance. I chose a new Colourpop single called Charge It. They have a ton of shades similar to this one though, so if you have some, you don't necessarily have to go and buy a new one. So this is the shade Charge It. It's like a medium pink shade, but a little bit dusty, I would say, because it's not like super pink. It's a very nice transition, I would say. I will just quickly show you the rest of my Colourpop palettes. Obviously it's a little bit empty now because I chose several of the Colourpop shadows for my Huda Beauty palette, but as you can see, they have a lot of these dusty medium pink tones. Here you have some in the middle, so there's definitely a lot of colors to choose from if you decide to buy some singles from them. But I'm going to swatch the shade Charge It for you, so this is how it looks like. I'm just going to build it up a little bit. I actually haven't touched this yet, so yeah, I think this one is going to go very well with both the gold shades in the palette, the peach shade, and yeah, it's a nice transition shade. It's a very popular shade, I would guess. So it's the shade Charge It from Colourpop. And also, if you do have the Ooh La La palette, I think this little one is from the Ooh La La palette. I also have It's My Pleasure palette, and I have them in the same palette because I depotted them, but this one can be a little bit similar as well if it's a little bit of a lighter shade than it looks like, because as I said, it's hard to see exactly how light or dark the shades are just based on the few swatches that I've seen. But this is the shade from the Colourpop Ooh La La palette. It's a little bit more bright and pink instead of coral. The next shade is called Galaxy in the Huda Beauty palette, and I just went for Luxy Beauty in the shade 79. It's one of their metallic shades, which is absolutely insane. So if you haven't tried the Luxy Beauty metallic shades, you should totally try them. It's like so creamy and beautiful, and you can just see when I'm going to swatch it now. I didn't really dig into the shade at all. You can see when I swatch it right now, it's going to go a long way. It's like I could probably make it go all the way around my arm. It's just super smooth, creamy and metallic, and I really like all of their metallic shades. So this is sort of like a, I don't know, it's a gold, but it's a little bit more of a champagne-y gold. As I said, it's hard to see in the palette and the swatches, but I think this one is a okay dupe at least. It's not too far away from what it looks like. That said, shades like these you probably have all over your palettes, because all neutral palettes have shades like these in them, I would say. So you don't need to have that exact similar shade. You probably have something similar in your collection already. Okay, so the next shade is one that I was really excited about, and I feel like this is a great dupe. The shade is called Libra in the palette of Huda Beauty. Oh, and I'm digging in here. But this is the shade Hopscotch by Makeup Geek, which is a very beautiful pastel lavender shade. And it built up so nicely. It was quite pigmented when I used it on my eyes, so you're definitely not going to have problems using this just by itself or in the crease like I did. Before I start the swatching, I also want to show these two shades. This darker one is from Amy Hart's Beauty and is called Barney. And it's a little bit deeper, I think, than the one in the palette, but I just wanted to add it anyways. And then we have the shade Kittenfish, which is like a, I would say it's a more pinky shade than the shade that we see in the Huda Beauty palette. So as you can see, Hopscotch is sort of like a middle thing between Kittenfish from Colourpop Ooh La La, I think. If not, it's the It's My Pleasure palette. And then it's the Amy Hart's Beauty one here. So we have Hopscotch here, then we have Kittenfish, and then we have Amy Hart's Beauty Barney. So I think that all of these would look good, but the one that I think looks more similar to the one in the Huda Beauty palette is the shade Hopscotch that I have first. The next shade in the Huda Beauty palette is the shade Orage, I think it's called. It looks like it's just a light to medium brown shade that is quite neutral. So I chose Colourpop in the shade Bel Air here, which is a very neutral light brown shade. And I think it looks quite similar, but just in the official photos. The other photos it looks way darker, but I'm sure you have some darker shades as well. I have plenty of palettes and single shadows that are similar to this shade, or darker or lighter. It's a very standard shade to have. The next shade in the Huda Beauty palette is the shade Momentum, and it looks like it is a very pale peach shade. So I went for Colourpop in the shade Lay Low, which is a very soft peach shade, almost a little bit of a corally shade. And it looks like this. I think it's a quite good match, but I'm not sure as I've only seen the swatches from two different people. And this is the shade Running Late, just in case it's a little bit more yellow toned. And then I have the shade that is called Distressed, and they're both from Colourpop as well. Because in some photos it looked like it was more of a cream shadow, so that's why I chose Distressed from Colourpop. But if it's a little bit more orangey and yellow toned, then it's more like Running Late. So I'm just going to swatch them here for you. So here we have the shade that I chose, Lay Low. Then we have Running Late, which is way more yellow as you can see. And then it's the cream shade. I've used it a lot because as you can see it's basically my skin tone. So I've almost hit pan on it because I used to set my eyeshadow or eyelid before I used eyeshadows before. But if it's a cream shade, then this is a very good one. And this is a good one if you want a more yellowy transition. And this is the one I think looks more like the one in the palette. So it's Lay Low, Running Late, and Distressed. The last shade in the second row is called Supermoon in the Huda Beauty palette, and I chose my Coastal Scents shadow in the shade White Silver. I usually have this in my highlighting palette. It's just a simple icy white highlighting shade for me. I think this is the best match, but I also have some other shades that could be relatively similar. This shade is called Celestial from Luxy Beauty, and it's a highlighting shade. It's a little bit warmer, I would say. It's sort of like a mix of silver and gold. So if you want something a little bit warmer than the shade White Silver, then you have Luxy Beauty Celestial here. And if you want something a little bit different, then I have 3 shades here. We have the shade Beam Me Up from Colourpop here. This is a silver shade. It's not super sparkly, but it's, as you can see, way more cool tone than the 2 others here. Then I have the shade Now and Zen. It's a white to yellow duochrome from Colourpop. If you're picking up some of the other shades here and you want something like the white shimmer shade, then you could pick this one up. And the last shade here is the shade that is called Sweet Tooth by Luxy Beauty, and this is not really similar at all to the one in the palette. I just wanted to show you because I think it's a very interesting shade. It's a little bit, as you can see here, it's a white to pink purple shade, and I think that would go very well with this palette. So here we have the shade White Silver from Coastal Scents. Then we have the shade Celestial from Luxy Beauty, the highlighting shade. Then we have Beam Me Up by Colourpop, normal single shade, and Now and Zen, also from Colourpop. The last one I have to swatch a little bit differently. It's the shade Sweet Tooth by Luxy Beauty, which is a white to pink reflecting shade. So I think all of these would be very well as an inner corner highlight, maybe not Beam Me Up, at least not for me, it's a little bit too dark, but the other ones would look very pretty. Finally, we're at the last row, so I have Let's Do It from Colourpop. It's a black shade. I'm not sure if it's actually black, the one in the palette. I think it might be a little bit more of a super dark brown with purple hints in it, but at least this one will darken up any look you make. And I have this shade, which is the shade Poison on Your Lips by Luxy Beauty. So these two together could definitely make a dark purple shade. And this shade Poison on Your Lips by Luxy Beauty is really dark if you build it up. It's a very pigmented shade, or not super pigmented to start with. It feels really dry to the touch, but when building it up onto a sticky base, it's, at least for me, it turns out really dark. So I'm just gonna swatch both of these right now because I don't really have any other shades that look so much like them. So this is the shade Let's Do It. It's a really good black shade. Then it's the shade Poison on Your Lips. As you can see, it looks so bad when I swatch it, but I swear when using a brush and putting it on the eye, it gets so dark. You can like see it on my finger here that it looks very dark. So I swear that that one is at least a shade that works very well for me. I forgot to say, but the darkest shade was called Vortex from the Huda Beauty palette, and the burgundy shade was called Hot Mess. The next shade in the Huda Beauty palette is called Supernova, and it looks like it's a burgundy shimmer. So I ended up choosing Colourpop in the shade Pinky Promise, which is a very simple burgundy shimmer shade. It's very beautiful. I also have a couple of other alternatives. It's Colourpop Peace of Mind, which is here, and then I have Luxy Beauty Firefly. I chose this one because it looked like on some of the swatches that it had like a little bit of a orange background to it, like it was maybe a duochrome. And the Firefly is a very strong duochrome, it's just a little bit hard to see in this light. So here you can see the shade Pinky Promise, Peace of Mind, both are from Colourpop, and then it's the shade Firefly. So you can see that the difference on Pinky Promise and Peace of Mind is that Pinky Promise is a little bit more purple, while this is a little bit more warm, true red. So Pinky Promise, Peace of Mind, and Firefly. As you can see, the Luxie Beauty shimmers are insane. They're like super pigmented, but I do like all of these shades. And I think all of these would be good dupes for the one in the Huda Beauty palette. And for the third last shade, it is called Karma in the Huda Beauty palette. And I chose the shade Venti by Luxie Beauty. It's like a warm medium brown. I also have the shade Top Notch here. It's a little bit more orange, I think. So you can see this is Luxie Beauty Venti, and this is Top Notch, which is, as you can see, a little bit more red almost, and a little bit darker. So I will swatch those for you as well. Luxie Beauty Venti, and then it's Top Notch by Colourpop. The two last ones in the Huda Beauty palette is called Gold Glitch and Frazzled. I felt like it was a little bit hard to find direct dupes because they just look like golden shades. In one of the pictures it looks like the shade Gold Glitch, the second to last one, has maybe a little bit of pink to it. That's why I chose Luxie Beauty in the shade Mirage. It's a beautiful golden shade, but it has a pink shift to it. It's a little bit hard to see just by the finger swatch right here, so I will just swatch it on my arm so you can see it properly. And then it's the shade Red Moon, which is like a very gorgeous, a little bit more of a warmer, more yellowy orange golden shade. So to dupe the shade Gold Glitch, I chose Mirage by Luxie Beauty, and to dupe the shade Frazzled, it's the shade Red Hot Moon. Oh, and these are just way too pigmented, it's insane. So I hope you can maybe see some of the pink shifts. I don't think so. I'm just trying to build it up a little bit to the side as well so you can maybe see it. Oh, I don't think so. At least this is how it looks in the pan though, so maybe it's possible to see. Try to turn down the lights a little bit more. It's clear to see from up here. I think you can see it a little bit right now, as long as it focuses on the shadow. So that is the shade Mirage first, and then it's the shade Red Hot Moon by Luxie Beauty. So that was all of the different dupes explained and swatched. So now I'm just going to swatch them all together, the ones that I chose for my dupe palette, and then we'll just see how it looks in the end. So here we have all of the shades from my dupe palette swatched out on my arm. I'm going to go through them from top to bottom here. So this shade is the shade Nostalgic from Makeup Geek. Then we have the shade Best Coast Scenario by Colourpop. Then it's a shade from the Colourpop It's My Pleasure palette. Then it's the shade Sorcery by Makeup Geek. Antimatter by Colourpop. Muscle Beach by Colourpop. Charge It by Colourpop. 79 from Luxie Beauty. Hopscotch from Makeup Geek. Bel Air from Colourpop. Lay Low from Colourpop. White Silver from Coastal Scents. Let's Do It from Colourpop. Poison on Your Lips from Luxie Beauty. By the way, I did just scrape up the top layer, and this is the first swatch that came after it, so it's just that it has built up a top layer on it. Then it's the shade Pinky Promise here by Colourpop. We have the shade Venti from Luxie Beauty, Mirage from Luxie Beauty, and Red Hot Moon from Luxie Beauty. I feel like I hit quite a lot of the shades quite good with already existing single shadows in my collection. I feel like the blue shade, the peach shade, the purple shade looks quite similar. The ones I felt like was not the best maybe is the shade, the grey shade, the blue shimmer shade, maybe some of the golden shades. Yeah, it's a little bit hard to say actually because I only had a couple of the photos available. But I do like this color story as a whole. and I'm excited to try to use it a little bit maybe. I just love how making a video like this makes me go in my own collection and see what kind of shades I actually do already have, because of these shades that drew me in, and then I actually do have them here, so there's no need for me to buy that other palette. And I hope that it was helpful for you as well if you wanted just a couple of shades from the palette, that you now have a couple of alternatives that you can look into instead of buying the whole palette. If you did like this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel if you want to see more videos like this. I post every Thursday and Sunday, and hopefully I will see you in my next video. Thank you so much for watching. Bye!
Sometimes you need to go, take a step back.